She reported me for harming this child. Which the rest of the day played out normally. We went to the field trip, came back. The child was not allowed to come back to my classroom per my boss that day. The next morning I came back. The child was in my classroom, and I spoke to the child. I apologized to the child. Maybe about 20 minutes later, another teacher that doesn't have a classroom, it was a coach, instructional coach, came in and said that he was relieving me, that I had a meeting with the principal, and and I did. I had to write down detail by detail everything that happened. I'm getting somewhere with this story, y'all. I had to meet with an investigator to explain to them what happened. They called witnesses from the children so that they can explain what happened. Like all of this, they went through all of the process, right? I got my union assigned lawyer involved and, explained to them everything that was going on. And God was with me. I'll just say God was with me. So the next few days, so like I said, I was on the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday they caught me out. So Thursday and Friday of that week, I was able to be, I was in the building still, where they were basically figuring out what they would do with me. But I wasn't allowed to go back to my classroom. So during this time, my boss had told me to go. One day was me observing someone else's classroom, their behavior management, because, at the basis of this, it is, what do you do when the child is, when you can't, like, ma'am, what you did is not the answer. So you go look and see how these other people handle this situation. So I'm laughing now, but y'all, I was scared. This was my job. Not only was this my job, I had never been through anything of this sort, like where I had to like get any type of enforcements of the law, enforcers of the law, involved in anything that I've done. So it was so scary, but Jesus was on the main line. Like that was a situation where I was like, I put myself in this situation and there was nowhere else for me to go but God. And like, God, nobody can help me out of this but you. Like if you would see it fit for you to get me out of this so where I don't lose my job or just anything worse, like, Lord. So yeah, I had spent the following day observing the teachers in the building, and then that Friday I had traveled to other schools to see other kindergarten classrooms and like how they do, like how they manage their classroom. And when I tell you that changed my teaching life, that day that I had to go to other schools and observe, there was this one teacher. She looked like she may have been about 60 years old. That lady was doing the dang on thing. Like I said to y'all before, I was only in my second year, but I was proving myself to be a great teacher. I was moving my students. I was managing my classroom appropriately before I got pregnant. Before I lost my mind. So yeah. So that was step one of God. Romans 8:28. That was step one. Like, you did something that maybe you shouldn't have done. Maybe it was divinely orchestrated. We'll come to our own conclusions about that. But your next stop right now is for you to be put in a situation that you would have never been put in otherwise. To see this woman, this like rock star, do it kindergarten class that you didn't know could be done because people in your building weren't doing it. As a second year teacher, I was still like under the wing of another teacher. I was still using what I could from my team, the other kindergarten teachers in my school, to help me mold myself and to be better. But what I saw in that latest classroom, this is in October, so kids may have been in school for 2 full months, maybe some change. I don't remember if it was at the beginning, maybe like the middle of October. I don't remember what part of October this was, but best case scenario, they had 2 full months of school. These kindergartners, these inner city kindergartners, like, I hate that this is the fact, but it's the fact. Some of them come to school not knowing nothing about a letter. They don't understand the concept of a letter. They don't understand the concept, like counting objects is not just saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, you actually have to have what's called one-to-one coordination. This one thing. This is 2 things. 1, 2. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, you have to teach a kindergarten this stuff. Like, a lot of it, if they have involved parents, they learn at home. Some of it they learn in pre-K if they went pre-K. But anyway, I'm saying all of this to say that these kids were writing, which was like, I got my kids to write the previous year, but I would say it was January when they were actually writing stuff that I could read. This was October. They were writing. They were using the resources in their room. Their room was silent. They were engaged. They were working. Like, everything was going. It was fabulous. And I was sitting there writing notes. I was writing notes. So what happened next? That Monday, I had a meeting down at the school board office for them to like come to a final decision of what they're going to do with me. So this is me telling the story again in front of these people in suits. And this man was so sweet. Like, this was the most intimidating thing I had been through in my life, y'all. I'm gonna just say that. But this man was so sweet. He was like, I see that you're pregnant, you know, based off of other people's accounts of your temperament and what you know, other people in your building accounts for you are of how you are as a teacher. This is giving an isolated event that he was basically like, you would do your best to learn from this. We're not taking a job. Like, even though you didn't do anything, you know, specifically to harm the child, it was not aligned with your best decision making. It wasn't aligned with your most ethical decision making of how you handle that situation. But, you know, he was basically telling me, like, I believe that what happened there didn't define you. Like, that's not the kind of person you teach you are, and that you will actually learn from this experience, and we won't see you no. So yes. But let me tell you about the conversation I had the night before I went to that meeting. I was speaking to somebody who knew about everything that was going on, and like, again, things were up in the air. I didn't know what they were going to decide to do about me, my situation, my whether I was going to be employed or not. I didn't know what their decision was going to be. So the night before, I was speaking to this person, and they were like, kind of just trying to ask me if I was scared or nervous. Like, but at that point, I wasn't anymore. I had prayed, I had accepted that whatever was going to happen was going to happen, and that there was nothing that I could do to make anything happen differently. It was in God's hands. And I was speaking to this person and explaining to them like why I'm not, you know, necessarily scared anymore, which I was, but I said everything happens for a reason, which I used to say that, but again, Romans 8:28 now, like, another sister in Christ said the same thing. Like, yeah, like, but that's the mentality. So it's not just like everything happens for a reason, but it's that whatever happens, God knows how to turn things around to where it works out for the good of those involved and those who he has his hand on, and the purpose of whatever he needs to put forth in this earth. So, like, what else can I do? But that's what I believe. So the words that I did say to him was that everything happens for a reason. And he rejected me saying that. I don't like to debate. That's my belief. I believe that, and that's giving me peace right now. So don't use this moment to debate with me whether everything happens for a reason according to your understanding. Because the rebuttal was, nah, if everything happened for a reason, then you trying to tell me that, I don't remember the exact verbiage, or let's say you trying to tell me that a kid getting shot in their house by a stray bullet happened for a reason. You trying to tell me that? Yeah. Yes. Just because, or whether you can understand what the reason is, that ain't none of my business. It's not none of your business. It actually isn't. But either we trust that there's a master of the universe, or we don't. It's either or. You can't have both ways to where it's like, oh, some things God has his hand over, but some things just happen. Now, God allows everything that takes place to take place, whether it's what you would consider to be something positive or negative. That's what it is. And whether you can't understand why it happened, you just trying to be too smart. I always put these two together. Lean not to your own understanding, and his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. So what you want me to say? Those things are written. So why are you still trying to make sense of everything, or feel like you have to figure out the reason why everything, or why are you trying to get in a guy's mind? That's not your place to be in. Now, if he gives you some understanding about some things, that's him choosing to reveal to you the mysteries of what he's choosing to reveal to you. But why we think we got to know everything when we are not meant to be on the same level as our Lord? We are not meant to be all knowledgeable. Just accept that. Anyway, so I stood on what I had to say. You know, he wanted to kind of like debate with me about that. But I'm like, no, even that stuff, I believe that there was a reason why it happened, and God allowed it for it to happen that way. I can articulate myself about that a lot better now, but I couldn't then. But I still, like, don't debate me. Go open your Bible and then just ask God for it. Just debate him. Ask God to show you what you don't understand. That's how I come to any understanding that I have. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, the next day, you know, they decided like, no, we're not taking your job. We're going to send you to another facility that is owned by the school board. and you don't have to be in the classroom. That is exactly what I wanted to happen before all of this bad stuff happened. Do you see what God did? Let me reel you back in and explain this. Okay. Let me remind you of what I told you. I told you that I was tired, I was hot, I was heavy, I was losing my mind. I didn't want to be in this classroom anymore. I told you that I was looking for a way out. I told you that the Sunday before this Monday, like the week and a half, I told you that 8 days before, I was asking my mother, how can I get into a facility, where I won't be in the classroom no more until after I had this baby? I can't take it right now. And she said, well, they have to send you there. You can't just ask to go there. Then, during a week span, all of this stuff happened that seemed negative because of a decision that I made when I was in my madness. And in the span of 8 days, I was given the news that I would be placed at a facility where I wouldn't have to be in the classroom no more, but I would continue getting my paycheck. You tell me God ain't real. You tell me that and expect me to believe you if you want to. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There is no other way to explain what happened. No other way. But I'm not finished. It gets better. I'm not even finished. So they sent me not to the building that I thought that I was asking my mother about. They sent me to a different building that kind of like did the same thing. Like, okay, this building was for teachers who were in timeout. That I don't want to call it a warehouse, but it was a storage place, a place where things were stored, and like your assignments while you're there are to organize and like clean and like do things like that. So that's where I was for about a month and some change. I was reporting there every day and doing whatever it was that they would have me do for the day. Well, during this time, I had developed a condition where there was a lot of weight bearing down on my in my pelvis, and my ligaments had become loose, and it's like I could feel it when I was walking, especially if I was like walking on an incline or a decline. I could just feel like my pelvis, like it was kind of painful. And so like I went to the doctor about it. They explained to me what was going on, and it started putting me in a position of, it's hard for me to be here too, because I don't sit down much. It's like you're moving, from room to room. When you finish with this task, you go in and do this task. You can sit down, but it had become uncomfortable, if I'm just being honest, for the things that I was having to do at this place. So I was desiring a more stationary place to be, but it never occurred to me that would be an option. So like, I'm just like, oh, I'm in discomfort, but I'm gonna just have to ride this out, which is fine because I'm not where I was. That was making me crazy. Like that had me stressed out and, erratic and running around with my 5-year-olds, which I would enjoy them and I would come to miss them, but it was just too much for me at that point in my pregnancy. So one day, the assignment was to tear these hardback book covers off of these books that were no longer being used, so that they could like recycle the pages of the books and dispose of the hardback covers. So I was like having to rip, like with the hardback covers, like older books, they were like kind of sewn onto the book in somehow. So I was having to like rip off the back and separate the book. And in doing that, I had pulled something in my back. I go to the doctor again. Like, this is what happened. The end result, so that I couldn't end up getting a lawsuit, okay? Because if I was to actually get hurt doing these things in this building while I was pregnant, and they were still trying to make me be useful in this building, but there were things that were physically, like you had to lift stuff and move stuff, like there were things that you were physically having to do in that building. Basically, they didn't want to get a lawsuit, so they moved me to the place that I was asking to go in the first place. It's a win, baby. It's a win. I can't, like, this story just, when I really just sit and think about like what God did here, like, again, I was put in these circumstances that felt bad at the time. They were uncomfortable at the time, but it was to move me where I was desiring to be, so that I could, this sounds so self-centered, but be comfortable for the last couple months of my pregnancy. So like at this point, I'm like 8 months pregnant. And so they moved me to the facility that I was asking to be in the first place, and they put me at a desk job. So I was going through old, how people have their permanent records. when they're in school, I was going through old permanent records and organizing them so that they can scan them and make them digital. That was my job while I was there. I spent about a month there and then I was done. I was on maternity leave. And then, it kind of even gets better. After I came back from maternity leave, there was still 1 quarter left of the school year. And they had to decide where to put me because I wasn't to go back to those facilities. I was to go back to a classroom now. Like basically my time out was over after maternity leave. But since there was only 1 quarter left of school, there was no classroom that I could go to that like I would have my own class. Like the situation, like it wasn't like it is now where there's vacancies left and right. So I ended up partnering. They put me in a co-teach situation with this wonderful teacher who already had her own classroom. It's a first grade class. She already had her own classroom, like going on all cylinders. She was great. She like class management. I learned some stuff from her too that I brought into my next year of teaching. Yeah, everything was great and we got along great. We really did. She went on to become an administrator too. But anyway, and it just gave me more experience in a different demographic, me teaching different kind of kids. They had me covering in a gifted classroom sometimes, like because they were able to pull me out of her classroom if they needed me somewhere else. So like I just got more experience in being a teacher. That thing that was so bad, and then but me having to be in other situations and learn from other people while I was in the classroom was the best thing that could have happened for my career, me career wise. It grew me up so much that by the time the next school year came, like mind you, I had a newborn baby. So that last quarter of school, I was in a co-teaching situation, which means that it wasn't me. It wasn't my classroom. I wasn't responsible for this classroom. I was just thrown into an already established thing that was already running well. So it wasn't me having to stay after school and do grades and like all of the stuff that pulls you away from your family when you're a teacher. I didn't have to be responsible for it. Like that was also God. I was able to just leave when it was time to leave and go home to my baby. And that was beautiful. So anyway, so the next school year, like I had become unstoppable. When I had came back the following school year with all of this stuff in my backpack, you want to talk about somebody who was just, I was just a beast. I was a beast at managing my classroom. I was a beast. Like I was good already, but like, no, I was a beast in moving my students. I knew what 5-year-olds were capable of now for real. So we're not waiting until January to write. Oh, they finna write by October. Oh, they finna know their words. Like my expectations for these children had been raised so much that they had no choice but to come up to my expectations. Like I would not have known that if I was just in the 4 walls of the school that I was in at the time with the people who were there. Not anything against them, but again, the thing that moved me wasn't in that building. So my circumstances, as bad as I wanted to stay, I had wrote a whole letter to my boss. Like when my leave was about to end, I'm like, can you please see if you can find a space for me in this building? Like, can I please come back? The Lord didn't want me to go back to Egypt. And not to say that something was bad about the school, like something was bad about Egypt, but he wanted me into another situation that A, I didn't have the stigma of what happened. B, I was just able to just start over and grow. And so I wasn't able to go back to the building. My boss didn't think it was a good idea anyway. Even from that point on, like again, it created a beast out of me in my field. But also that following year, they implemented a stipulation where pay was concerned, where it was like, if you were hired after this date, you were automatically put on performance pay. While other people were able to, have their tenure pay or whatever based off of how long they were there in their salary. Like, I'm on performance pay now. A beast had been created though. So not only am I like the fact that I'm so efficient now, I'm going to be being paid more than I would have been anyway. Like, who knows if I was still, like, performance pay was coming either way. But if I was still in my old circumstances where I was just good instead of excellent, it would have affected me that way too. But okay, performance pay here, and now you're a beast. So you finna get paid, boo. Like, everything just ended up working out from this situation that I thought was so bad. That I was afraid that was going to go one way. But the Lord had his hands all over that. So it's just bringing me back to remember God. If he's asking you to do something that you're so unsure about trusting him in, I dare you to just sit and close your eyes. Go year by year and just try to remember, like, What impossibly terrible situation can you think of that you knew it was God that pulled you out of and made it so good, better than you could have thought or asked? And remember that God. That's the same God. It's the same God. Same God right now. Same God back then. It's the same God. If he did it before, he'll do it again. He will show up for you. Continue to trust God. Just remember God and trust him. That's all I got.